Okay. So yeah, we started on publicizing this event. We actually finalized it only on Tuesday or Monday. It's great that we have 250 plus registrations, and I think we already have around 100 people joining in on a Thursday evening, which is great. So, and this is the first sort of a event that we are doing with TA Refresh in the TA Refresh community. TA Refresh community is a new thing for most of you here. It's also new for us. It's basically is a community that we formed of for talent acquisition professionals to learn together, to share their tips and insights with each other. We already have 500 plus members in this community so far, and this community is growing fast. As you can see, 100 people are already inside this meeting right now. So it's growing fast, and idea of this community, as I said, is to learn and share experiences to hire better in a very fast changing environment of 2021. A lot of changes have been happening in the talent acquisition as well as in the professional space. The way professionals are, their preferences are changing, their decision making criteria is changing, all of that is changing. So the goal is to bring the community together and facilitate learning and sharing so that we all grow together. This community is maintained by CutShort. It may happen that some of you may not know about CutShort yet. This is the first time you came to know about it. So we are India's #1 platform to hire premium talent. We have one single platform as compared to all the other solutions out there, which are typically either job portals or ATS or assessment test providers or something else or a chatbot provider. We are one single platform that actually combines everything in one single packaging so that you get sourcing, you get matching, you get engagement, and you also get post offer support. All of that in one single platform. We started in 2015. Since then, we have been used by 15,000 plus companies, right from small startups, 5 people strong, all the way to 10,000 employees strong companies. We have more than 1.2 million professionals who have also signed up on the platform. These are across different startups, product companies, services companies, which are all skilled talent, and uh, we have uh, we have grown very fast in that short span of time. So why this community TA Refresh that we've started? So basically what we realized after working with so many companies and so many people is that to solve recruiting, uh, there is a backdrop, which is that the professional world is changing very fast. As I said earlier, the criteria, the whole career trajectory is changing for the professionals, and post pandemic it has become much more nuanced and much more emphasized. So in this modern context of these fast happening changes, first of all, recruitment professionals and companies need to understand these changes. They need to form a mindset around those. Then they need to build the right processes around those, and then the tools come in place. So while we have built a tool, we knew that these two areas where understanding of the professional world changes happening there, and also how to build the right processes for your company. These are two important parts that are important pieces for any company to solve recruitment. And this community and these kind of sessions are our attempt to create that kind of a solution where these gaps are plugged and the companies are able to use the right tools in the right way to solve the right problems that they have. And that's why we started this community. So that was a background and backdrop of what is this community all about. We are going to see more TA Refresh initiatives. Today is one such initiative where we invited two special featured members from our community, uh, Sana Singh and Saili Prabhudesai, and they both are from the recruitment team at ThoughtWorks. So today's session is about understanding their experiences, their tips, and the whole talk is termed as candid. Now when we say candid, the idea here is within this community we want to share things non in a non very not in a not very formal way, and we want to be able to freely share what we believe and what is working for us. So that's why it's called candid. And we'll have this talk where I and my colleague Supriya will be posting some questions for Sana and Saili. They'll be sharing their insights. And then after that, in the meantime, you can also ask your own questions to them in the chat section, or there's also a LinkedIn post where you can post. And one question actually, we have a nice Amazon card as a reward as well if your question becomes the most insightful question today. So you can post it there, and we will present those questions as well to Saili and Sana. And ThoughtWorks, the extended team of ThoughtWorks also is here. So maybe some of them might also want to join the discussion today. So that is about the talk. After this talk, we will open it up, and you can, anyone else in this group who has any other insights, any other tips that you want to add to what Sana and Saili or somebody else is going to share today, you are free to do that. Just raise your hand, and then we will try to also involve you in the discussion. And then as you can always ask more questions. So that is the idea, and that's the format of the event today. If you have any questions around anything else, feel free to ask in the chat section. The polls are the polls done, Supriya?
Just one more question. Since you were talking, I did not.
Okay, sure. So you can.
Shall I launch the second, third question?
Yeah. Okay, so while the audience is answering this poll question, then let's get started. So Sana and Saili, welcome to this event today. Thanks for finding time out for this.
Sure. Thank you for inviting us over. Yeah, so I'll probably begin with my quick introduction. So, hi everyone, my name is Sana, and I have been in the recruiting industry for over 8 years now. I started out my career in a recruitment process outsourced firm, and soon after I moved to ThoughtWorks. So I've been with ThoughtWorks for over 7 years now. I started out as an on-ground recruiter in Pune office and got an opportunity to work on variety of requirements, all kinds of roles, in fact, that we hire for at ThoughtWorks, mainly IT, but then some non-IT roles as well. And now, currently, for the past 2 years or so, I've been playing a role of a recruiting lead, and I'm handling a bunch of recruiters who are responsible for growing tech community at ThoughtWorks Pune and Mumbai office. That's about me.
Okay, Saili, you there?
Yes, Nikunj. Hello, everyone. Thank you so much for joining in today. So yeah, so I'm Saili, and I have over 6+ years in the industry. I started off as a developer, and after working in a startup, I realized I kind of explored what are some of the other roles, and recruiting is something I could closely relate to, and that's how I moved into recruitment. And I have been into this space for more than 5 years now. And I joined ThoughtWorks, I think around 1 year ago. It's been around 1.5 years so far. And I work for Pune and Mumbai recruiting team in ThoughtWorks, majorly taking care of the technical openings. And I think what I like about ThoughtWorks, that it is a place where I can experiment with different things. And I think what I admire the most here is that, I can celebrate my failures along with, my success. So yeah, that's about me.
That's great to hear. Okay, so I'm sharing the poll results.
This is good to see.
Yeah, you're at the right place. This is the latest question. So most of the people are interested in discussions with you, and they also interested in discussions with other members in this community. Can you share the results of the previous polls as well?
I do. This is the question before that.
Okay, so which part of there was one more question about how much effective the recruitment process is today. Let's go back.
This was the question.
Okay, so you have 3 questions. Okay, so most of the people are experience bracket 3 plus is around 50% plus. So most of the members are more experienced. Okay, go ahead. Next one. Okay, so sourcing 26%, post-offer engagement as expected is 26%. Recruitment analytics, a lot of people are interested in that as well. Candidate engagement 16%. Offers and negotiation 12%. Okay. Anything surprising here, Sana and Saili? Or this is as expected?
I
Yes.
think as expected.
Yes, yes.
Okay. Okay, great. So I think let's cut to the chase. Supriya, you can take over and look at the questions that you have for them.
Thank you, Nikunj. Hi, Sana and Saili. Welcome to the session. So we have a few questions that we've already collated from some of our users that they would like to know about a few things. So starting with that, so basically, companies like ThoughtWorks have been hiring for quality talent, and that talent has been in a lot of demand from various sectors. So, based on your experience, what do you think are some of the areas that companies need to keep in mind when they are in such sort of a situation?
Right. I can begin with this one, and Saili can add in further. So, in the current situation of work from home, I think all the IT companies are hiring aggressively, and because of the ever, increasingly demand situation as well. And some of the companies are even able to offer better salary packages as well as benefits than before in order to attract the top talent. So I think some of the things that I've seen in my experience have worked for ThoughtWorks as well as in my personal experience as well is that the one thing that tops all charts is I think providing exceptional candidate experience. I think that's a no negotiation for us. So we need to make sure that we are able to talk to the candidates, understand what part of your culture that they can best relate to, and then accordingly build your pitch about, let's say, are they more interested in learning about career learning opportunities, or are they more interested in knowing about the roles and responsibilities, or generally what kind of other contributions that they can bring about to the organization. So that candidate experience is something that plays a major part, and that is right from the beginning, from your very first call. So that is one thing that we have been trying to do while working at ThoughtWorks. Another thing is that like stories of your own employees, right? So let's say who have excelled in their field. So basically, you can also leverage on their network. So for example, if I have to give you an example, right? So there is this person who actually comes from a medical science background. He studied medical science, and he could not stand the sight of blood, which is why he decided to change his industry, and he came into the IT industry, started out as a BA in ThoughtWorks many years ago. And then out of his interest, he actually started learning Scala, and he self-studied Scala, became a Scala developer, and now he's actually very famously known as Mr. Scala in the ThoughtWorks Pune fraternity, right? So that's one thing that you can definitely leverage on. So additionally, we also leverage on a lot of other people, like who have written books, who write like regular articles about ThoughtWorks or about different topics in the IT industry, right? So those are certain ideas that you can think about as to what is that one USP that you have as an organization to offer to the candidate that you can leverage upon. Right. So in this scenario, a lot of candidates actually join us so that they would actually get an opportunity to come and work alongside, some of these fans, basically, some of these well-known people in the industry. So yeah.
That's great to know. I mean, candidate experience is something that every company should definitely look at. So when you talk about specific candidate experience, how do you make sure that your candidates are getting one of the best experiences, and something that they will even if they are rejected in a particular process, they will have a good opinion about your company, and they will have a good word of mouth spread about ThoughtWorks.
Okay, I can maybe take this one. So yeah, I think it is very, very important to keep the candidate experience at the center of everything, right? At the center of the selection process mainly. So, and as Sana rightly said, it will start at the right beginning when you have that first interaction with the candidate. So try to learn about the aspirations of what they are actually looking for in their job, and what part of the culture they can actually relate to, and try to build upon that. And I think it is also very important that we give them timely feedback. So when I say that, for example, if a candidate applies, try to also prepare them for the interview, what is expected in the next round. After the first round is over, give them the feedback of that particular round, and also tell them what they can expect in the further rounds. So keep it very transparent. And I think the very crucial aspect here would be to close the conversation, because that ultimately defines the whole experience for them. So if you're not closing it rightly, then obviously you're not giving them the right experience. So try to have that closing conversations with not just the offered candidates, but also try to have that with the rejected candidates, because you never know, right? Because these are the people who know about ThoughtWorks, and they want in your company, sorry. So they want to know about the company, and they want to work in your company. So if you kind of keep them engaged, they might ultimately come back to you and reapply at some point in future. And which has happened with us, right? When we give feedback to candidates, we give them like a timeline, and we tell them, okay, these are some of the focus areas that you need to improve upon. And we also provide them some material which will help them to improve in that direction. And then we'll tell them that, okay, this the next 2 or 3 months you prepare upon these areas, and then you can reach out to me. And that's how we have got good potential hires as well.
Right, right. Giving candidates feedback and closing the loop is very important, one of the most crucial stage, but it also takes a lot of your bandwidth, and it's a lot of operational work also at times. So how do you manage that? And along with that, most of the times there might be cases that the feedback is not taken in a very positive way. It can be, the balance can be lost somewhere. So how do you take care of that?
Yeah, I think one of the questions in the chat is related somehow. So I think if you see in a way, right, like in a day, if you're doing, say, for example, 10 or 12, 20 interviews, just, towards the end of the day, it is important that we reflect upon that day. So just block, say, for example, 15 or 30 minutes, or say even 1 hour, okay? And maybe just reflect upon that day, how many candidates you actually evaluated, because obviously the ones you're moving forward with, you'll obviously have a conversation with them. But try to give that time only to the rejected ones. If you're not able to have a conversation with them on a phone, maybe try to share an email with them, which talks about their improvement areas, and share some material with them, which can help them to kind of prepare upon that. So I think that is one way. Sana, do you want to add in or something?
Yeah, mostly to the second part of your question, right? So how do they take it? So of course, it is not foolproof that everyone is going to take it in a positive manner. But then, like Saili was pointing out, right from the beginning, we try to be reflective of our culture, right? So giving and receiving feedback is a part of our culture, and we sort of, reiterate on these right from the beginning. So in majority of the cases, I've seen that, our candidates have taken the feedback quite positively. There have been a few instances, of course, but very less, that they come back and sort of disagree on some of the points, which is fair as well. And in those cases, we try and make them talk to our panels directly, right? So as a recruiter, we try to gauge maximum feedback from the panels, and then go and share it with the candidate. But then if we are somehow unable to, because of the technical challenges that we might have, so we then make the panel and the candidate talk, together, so that some of those frictions can be avoided.
Yeah, and I also think if someone is not receiving feedback at all, then that person is anyways not a culturally fit, right? Because that feedback culture is a part of our culture. So if that person is not receiving it, then it does not even make sense to proceed.
Yeah, that makes sense. So giving feedback will sort of, keep the candidates warm also in a way. They will have this, that warm feeling about the company, that they took that effort to come back. So that's kind of building a pipeline for that role in the future. So has that happened with you, that you give a feedback and then, because that's your pipeline, you have rehired from there, like you've taken those candidates back and you've rehired?
Yes, I think that happens all the time. I think maybe Saili can add in more, but generally, like when I used to work as a hands-on recruiter, I would make at least one hire through that channel, right? So sort of repurposing the same candidates who we had rejected in the past and provided feedback. So I think that gave us a lot of hires.
Yeah. And I think in a way, those candidates are the ones who can closely relate to, the company more, because they have already been a part of the process and everything. So you don't even have to spend so much time, talking about the company, because they are already following your company in a way. So yeah, I think that is, so that's what we call rediscovery. So I think that is one of the important ways of doing it.
Right. That completely makes sense. So moving on, I see that what I have gathered is that a lot of recruitment teams largely play a role of sourcing and coordinating interviews and managing the candidate communication. A lot of operational work is there. I believe that you were saying that you are much more than that. Like the team at ThoughtWorks does much more than that. It's more of a partner to the technical team. So how does that work out?
Yeah, so largely in the recruitment process, there are three constants always, right? There's a recruitment team, and then there is candidate and the interviewer. So it is extremely crucial that we prepare the candidate as well as the interviewer, and hence, we sort of call ourselves influential talent advisors, and as a part of that, we are able to participate in making a decision for a candidate along with the panel. So we take the feedback from the panels firsthand. We try and understand what really happened in that interview, and sometimes we also help them to come to a conclusion, right? Because maybe they have not done many interviews in the past, and maybe they have just started taking interviews. So those are the advisory piece that we have to play there, and we have to make sure that they are able to assess the candidate in the rightest way possible. Maybe they should not have any biases, right? So that also is something that we try and avoid in our interviews, and that is the role that we actually play. So that's the bigger picture than just facilitating an interview, calling a candidate, and just facilitating that, right? So that's a bigger part that we play. Apart from that, we also have a lot of multiple, let's say, global recruitment initiative projects, right? So these initiatives are run at a global level, wherein let's say there's a project that is going on, let's say, the topic of around candidate experience, right? For example. So what we will do is, there will be, a group of people that will be formed, which will be a voluntarily group, and it will have one person from every region. So every country's representation will be there, and then some of these topics like candidate experience, or maybe even let's say interviewing at scale. So some of these topics are discussed, and then they talk about, let's say, the best practices and effective ways of hiring. So basically the group then will start with, let's say, where are we currently with these topics and where do we want to be. So we set the milestones for ourselves, and then we don't not only just come up with the ideas, right, but we also make sure that the implementation happens as well. So there is a monitoring phase as well for the project later on, and we make sure that that perfect implementation also happens, and there will be a monetary group as well for that. So that's why we get to see different phases of, let's say, or different facets of recruitment from that perspective.
So there might be instances where the candidate is a good candidate, but might be missing on one of the skills that is a desired skill in that particular role. So what do you think should be done? Like, in what cases should you look at hiring for learnability and training them, rather than hiring somebody who's already trained at the entire skill set and is coming with that skill set?
Yeah, I think training for, on the learnability perspective has become so much important nowadays, because all the companies are scaling. So I think when the companies are scaling, it would be the right time to kind of have this approach. Also, it is important to kind of invest in candidates who are at the early stage in their career, because some of these people, right, they can quickly, learn on those skills which are desired by the company. So maybe instead of hiring for those specific skills, what we could do is hire them instead for the core skills, bring them in, and then train them on the specific skills that you want to do, right? And before even doing that, I think it's important that you build that interviewer capability. So if you just kind of have the pipeline in place, and then the interviewers are not aware about it, then that's not the right approach. You need to have conversations within your company wherein we talk about potential more, and that's how you get the panel on board, and then take this approach. Another way, what we also do at times is, if we feel that there are certain strengths and there are certain areas wherein people need to be trained upon, we have also taken a decision that okay, we have hired those people, and even before those people have joined us, we have tried to kind of do like a mentor mentee program with them and train them on those specific areas. So that also have has helped us a lot.
Yeah. Once you've hired a person, you have decided that on choosing this person, taking this person forward. One of the biggest issues that a lot of companies face is the candidate not either accepting the offer or not joining after accepting the offer. So, as per your experience, first of all, how severe this problem is, and second, what are the steps that ThoughtWorks takes, and what general advice you can give to companies out there to tackle this kind of a problem?
Okay, I can go ahead maybe. Yeah, so like you said, right, it is a definitely a severe problem, because you've invested a lot of time into bringing that candidate to that closure stage, and especially for a company like ThoughtWorks, because we have a rigorous interview process, right? So it definitely is a disappointment towards the end, but certain things can't be avoided, but we try and do certain things that are definitely helping us. So I think what we do, one thing is, like talking to the candidate and trying to understand what is it that they are, like looking for in the next career move, like getting that clarity right in the beginning. Let's say if we come across any candidate who possibly has, let's say, maybe 2-3 offers in hand already, and also is probably at a very high compensation already. So we would not go ahead in the process unless we have actually understood what are they looking for, and how can we actually align align their expectations towards the organization goal as well, right? So and then we would also try to understand their long-term aspirations and how will that align as well. So those are the things that we then generally sort of play around and get that clear understanding right in the beginning of what are they actually looking for in terms of compensation as well, because that plays a major part, right? And that is where most of the candidates would decline. So in a way, if one of your candidates has given you a commitment, right, then they try and stick to it, right? So I wouldn't say that all human beings would be like that, but then majority would try and stick to it, is at least what I've seen in my experience. Of course, there is some 10%, 10-15% of people who would still not join. But then I've also seen in my experience there are not a lot of people abscond us, right? They just don't disappear on the day when they have to join. So they at least inform us in advance so that we are better prepared to sort of look for another person in their place. So that is one thing that have worked out for us, having that clear and transparent conversations right in the beginning of the interview process. And then like also like, because we are giving a lot of like feedback, and the way to kind of candidate experience that we are delivering, people are able to like self-reflect on them as well, and then they are also able to appreciate that okay, we are giving them feedback and they are able to improvise. So that is also sort of making them like choose us, even if they have to go for a certain sort of pay cut as well, right? So that is another thing. And additionally, I think one thing that definitely all of us in the recruitment space should be working on is negotiation skills, right? So that is a no-brainer, because eventually it all boils down to that when it comes to making someone to join your organization. So you, like I said, you have to, at the very early on stage, you have to start understanding what are the areas which interest this particular candidate. So is it let's say your culture, or is it let's say the flexibility of work, or is it work from home option, or is it the pay part, right? So whatever it is, try and play around with that. And I think that has definitely helped us in our like having less declines at least. And I think additional at the end of the day, it is a buyer's market, so we do have to bake certain percentage of offer declines in the plan anyway. But these are certain things that we try and do. Yeah.
Right. So these conversations that you were talking about, getting to know the candidate, that happens right in the beginning of the process.
Yes. So at least for the candidates, let's say, who are, as I was mentioning, that if we come across a candidate who already has a lot of offers in hand, or someone who's already at a higher pay scale, and we might be able to just about match their salary, we might not be investing a lot of time into others for whom we are able to sort of match the salary. But at least for the ones who we find dicey, right? That is where. So if I have to take an example, right? So just I think 2 months ago, I was interacting with one candidate, and he told me that he's interviewing at ThoughtWorks and two other competitors actually. So I asked him very straightforward that, okay, if you have an offer tomorrow from all the 3 organizations, which would be your choice, right? So he told me, and he gave me a word that he will join ThoughtWorks, and he's done that. So, that is the power that it can bring, right, on the table, if you are actually sort of taking that commitment from that person right in the beginning. But like I said, you still can't be sure, some people will still back out. So that's okay.
Right. That makes sense. So building a relationship with the candidate, as you said, ensures some sort of a confirmation from their side, and it has like a better human to human rapport than, just having a very operationalized process.
Correct. Yeah.
That makes sense. Yes, that does make sense. So I think, Nikunj, if you can have more questions for them.
Yeah, I think you talked about this. Yeah, can you hear me?
Yeah.
Yeah,
Nikunj, I think, Supriya, you talked to them about the skill gap, that sometimes people don't have the enough experience on the right skills. So then what do you do? So I think one of the things that I had read about ThoughtWorks recruitment is something called as hiring workshop. I mean, that's a very interesting experiment that that ThoughtWorks team did. So would you like to talk about it? That what exactly was the idea? That you don't have enough talent which is already skilled, and you want to hire them. So how do you work with them closely and nurture them and actually groom them into the next hire pipeline? So would you like to just in a minute describe what exactly the whole idea was?
Yeah, I think Sana, you would be the right person to talk here, because I think it came in picture, since a long time ago. So maybe you can take this one.
Sure. Yeah. So actually, this whole idea of hiring workshop came out of some casual conversations. Just like how we're doing right now. So while we were hiring, we found out that there were a lot of candidates who were interested in becoming thought workers, right? So they were actually coming back and applying to us multiple times, and somehow they were not able to clear the interviews because they lacked certain areas which were crucial for us in our hiring. This is especially for the technical hiring that I'm talking about. So, hence we came up with this idea of doing a workshop for some of the past rejected candidates to bridge those specific gaps. And, we would do it for certain candidates only who were at least rejected in some advanced level of an interview with us. So these workshops then provided the candidates with the right amount of knowledge, in both theoretical and practical manner. And then we sort of re-interviewed them and hired them as well. Right. So basically the idea was that we would be conducting like a 2-day workshop over a split of 2 days. So generally it would be planned for a Friday to Saturday type of an event, so that people can take out time. They might have to just take like 1 day off. And there would be some trainers from ThoughtWorks, maybe one or a couple of trainers, depending on the size of the participants. And then apart from them, there were also some facilitators. So these facilitators would actually be assessing these participants in the terms of, how are they doing on some of the practices that we were trying to assess them on. Right. And then this whole approach actually provided us quite a holistic view, not just technically, but also on aptitude, attitude, and then how well of a cultural fit would they make, right? Which probably sometimes we can miss out on when we are meeting them just for an hour or for an interview, right? So in majority of the cases, let's say if there were 20 participants for the workshop, we would end up shortlisting after the workshop, 2-day workshop, we would end up shortlisting about 7 or 8. And then we would sort of do like one quick interview for them and end up hiring, let's say maybe 3, 4, some numbers like that. Yeah.
Yeah, I think that's an interesting case study, that there are people out there who did not meet the criteria for some reason, but then you invested your developer resources on them, tried to teach them some tech topic, and then while you're watching them learn, you're also looking at learnability of these candidates. And this is an example of how do you innovate and how do you find what works for you based on your requirement. Like in ThoughtWorks case, you had developer bandwidth to focus on this. Maybe some companies here today in this session today may not have that bandwidth in terms of technical resources. So I think the whole point is, which I'm taking away from this, is that how do you look at your unique situation and look at your strengths and look at innovatively around what is a problem that you're facing and trying to experiment around it is something which is an important part of adapting, in today's environment, in a very challenging environment right now.
Yes, absolutely right. So basically, thinking about innovation and inventing, having that mindset of, not only just identifying the problem, but also looking for solutions towards it, right? So, yeah.
Okay, so some part of the audience also is interested in recruitment analytics, being data driven, AI. So, what is your take on it? Where do you see the industry going in terms of being data driven analytics, HR analytics, recruitment analytics?
Yeah, I think we are to some extent, I mean, all of us are following that to some extent. But, if I have to talk about, I think a lot of phases in recruitment itself are automated, but, the human touch will be always needed, right? So we'll have to always go for smart work rather than the hard work moving forward. And obviously more and more companies should ultimately adapt to this if they are scaling up. So yeah, Sana, if you want to add in anything.
Yeah. So I think, AI or generally basically automation has been there for quite some time now, right? It's not something new, but then it's just got a fancy term now. It's called AI. And automation definitely enables recruitment, right? So I think first level of filtering can be done, like Saili pointed out. But then, in this today's connected world, getting profiles is probably not that difficult, right? But then how do you convince that person to be able to join your company is something that AI possibly cannot completely take over. And I think Nikunj can, answer this better because Kachot also works on AI, right? So AI definitely is helping us, and giving more time to recruiters to concentrate on things that need our attention. Nowadays a lot of platforms actually work on AI, and we also get some suggestions based on our screening as well, right? So and maybe some other aspects also can be automated, but I feel the future probably is not that entirely it cannot be automated, because at some point some human touch will be needed.
Yeah, I think you said it right. Recruitment largely is a part of understanding the candidates, their aspirations. All of that is definitely better done by humans, right? Who are perceptible, who can understand the behavior and the career goals. I think where AI actually has a kind of an edge on humans is the volume of data it can process, and the amount of time it can do it, right? So I think when it comes to, let's say, surfacing candidates from thousands and lakhs of candidates and looking at and surfacing them for your review is something which, of course, machines can understand and can do that better based on all the data points it has. For example, one of the algorithms that we have today is, it is like a human recruiter. It ranks candidates' profile quality based on the peer group and all the achievements. Like typically recruiters, when we look at a resume, we look at colleges, we look at companies, we look at the accomplishments, like somebody filed patents or somebody contributed to open source, somebody won some international competition, somebody went to Stanford. All these things the AI understands, and it understands the value of all these achievements, and it is able to surface those candidates better. So these are opportunities that the machine can create for humans, but humans have to capitalize on it. Machines can't really do all of that job by themselves. So I think there was a debate sometime back, that recruiters versus AI, but actually it's not versus AI. I think it's humans and machines together come against a problem, which is recruitment. It is not this versus that, right? It's about how do you combine these best resources by best combination and solve the problem.
Yes.
That is what we believe in, and in fact this is what we are doing here. We have the AI, we have the tool, but in this session what we are covering is the mindset, the understanding of the human behavior and the candidate behavior, and trying to make the processes and understand how do you model the right processes using the right tools, because tools can't really do much if we don't know how to use them. And this is the part that is a gap right now. And I think, as you said, a lot of things you guys are doing at ThoughtWorks, and some companies also are innovating on their own front. So idea is to bring those thoughts together and learn together. So that's what at CutShort, what we believe in. So a lot of questions are coming, by the way, and it's almost scary that we will not be able to take up all these questions. But I think the most interesting or repeated questions are around offer letter management, or the whole, how to increase the joining ratio kind of a thing. That is, I think, one important theme here. I think you already answered that question for the audience. So if somebody also, if there's some more specific question to it, I think you're not saying that there is a silver bullet there. All you're saying is you have to understand the candidates, build a rapport with them, map their career journey to what your organization can offer, and stay in touch and build the human equation with them. So even if they're not accepting the offer, they're telling you, and you're not kept in dark, and you're not left in a surprise on the day of joining that they're not joining. I think that is what you're saying. But beyond that, in terms of the compensation and all of that, there is not a lot of room that as a recruiter you have there. But understanding these points early in the process, without going through the process and then figuring out these things later. I think one mistake I see a lot of companies do make is they go through the hiring process with a mindset that, okay, first prove your talent to me, then we'll talk about the fitment. And that is too late, because by the time you have invested too much time into a candidate, and then later on there's no culture fitment, there is no career journey fitment, and then they don't join. And then companies are typically disappointed that the candidate was good, but the candidate did not accept the offer. This could have been captured early in the process, if the recruiter or the company had done some deep dive into why the candidate is even talking to you. For example, when candidates talk to us and they don't really have an incentive, or they don't really have an strong reason for talking to us, then we know it's just one more offer that they're looking for. But if they come in hot and they actually tell us that this is what exactly attracted me, then we are more confident this person actually will join. So I think there's some checks and balances if they're done early in the process. I think that's what you were also saying, that it helps you in ensuring that the funnel conversion is better. Is that right? If you want to add something to it?
I think you have summarized it quite well. Yeah.
Okay, great. So Jay is asking a lot of questions. So thanks, Jay. I don't know what is the full name, but a lot of questions from you. Closure on candidates is important even for rejected candidates, but actually that's not possible 100%. So yeah, I think that's what the ThoughtWorks team actually is saying, that they have this as a KRA, that they have to respond to all the candidates, right? Is that right? Is that a goal that you have to respond to as many or 100% of the candidates?
Yeah, so I think you can also prioritize, right? Like, where do you see that there is a potential? So you might want to invest more time into them versus the others. So we do a combination of everything. Actually, we sometimes share feedback on, like, basically, tell them about that their selection hasn't happened through mails as well, sometimes through phone calls. So it has to be a combination of both. As company scale, I do think every recruiter, the recruiters can reach out to every candidate and tell them about this, right? So it has to be a combination.
Okay, so Jay also is asking, did you have to handle negative feedback via Glassdoor? And how important, by the way, in your experience, how important is Glassdoor as a factor in influencing the decisions of the candidates?
Yeah, so as a recruitment team, we I mean, we on day-to-day basis might not be, looking at Glassdoor responses or things every day. But then, of course, if we do get, if the comments are positive, I think we are okay. If there is some negative comment, that is when everyone becomes alert, and we want to address like what was the actual issue. So we definitely had to face some negative, like there were instances when we had to face negative feedback, and we then actually pulled out the data, tried to understand who this candidate was, and we have also gone back to them and tried to rectify, in whatever possible way we could. So those are some of the steps that we take.
So just out of curiosity, do you also have like Glassdoor premium subscription or something, or you don't have any payment, like any paid plan for them?
I think marketing team would know better on this. I'm
Okay.
not entirely sure. Yeah.
Yeah, in terms of, I think the feedback from candidates, right? Basically, we send a survey out to all the candidates who are processed through a process. So, it's automated through the application tracking system that we use. So basically, we kind of work around that data more instead of the Glassdoor reviews, because, that survey is basically something which is filled by most of our candidates who have gone through the process. So that is something, we look at on a timely basis in our, India team meetings, and see what are, the ways we can improve upon that and stuff like that. I wouldn't say we are already there, but it's something, that we take something seriously. Yeah.
So that survey is sent to all the applicants, or it is only sent to applicants who clear a specific stage in the hiring process?
It's basically to all the applications who go through the process after, recruiter screen.
Okay.
Regardless of if they clear or not.
Okay. Mika is asking, which way should we communicate the rejection? Should it be through phone or email? What do you guys prefer?
I think again, right, as Sana said earlier, it would depend. So, if someone is in an advanced stage and, we feel that, this is a potential candidate for us, we usually kind of make calls. Earlier, there was a practice of calling most of the people, but now since, that's not possible, we at least try to communicate, the feedback through emails, just give them some of the pointers, if not the detailed feedback.
Okay, this question is from Kavya. How do you keep connections with tech candidates after rolling out offer letter, especially with the ones who have 3-month notice period? It's a long notice period. So what are checkpoints you have with them?
Yeah, nothing different really for the ones who are, on a 3 months notice period. But yeah, I mean, the onboarding process itself will start after the offer is rolled out. So there will be variety of things, like currently in the remote setup, there is something like, we'll have to check if the laptop shipment details are, shared by the candidates or not, if if they have got the tracking link for the laptop or not, if they've filled in all the documents or not. So we kind of try to take them as a reason and do those timely checks with all the candidates.
Okay. How do you manage immediate joiners holding 3-4 offers? How will you pitch to them? Do you pitch them separately? Do you prioritize them because they already have 3-4 offers?
Yeah, again, I think I would again say, it happens at the very beginning, because these people, if they're, early joiners, they'll be holding those offers at the initial stage itself. So right when you have the first connect, try to analyze what are those offers, right? What these other companies are offering differently from what you are. Try to, get a detailed understanding of the, compensation structure. If not, over email, because they'll obviously not be comfortable to share, the offer letters with you right at the very beginning, but at least verbally try to kind of discuss with them, around those areas, and try to see what you feel like. If you feel that, okay, it is something which is not possible, give them that, feedback that, okay, will not be able to proceed because of the compensation structure that we have. And I think, yeah, that should be it.
Okay. How do you respond to candidates who reach out to you on LinkedIn? How do you track them?
So I think it is a practice that I've been following, that every day I try and make sure to log into my LinkedIn. I know it can get quite overwhelming, but I try to do that. So I think that is the best way to do it, right? So in case, let's say you have forgotten to get back to them, they will have a place to come back to you anyway. So maybe take out, I would say, 30 minutes every day to make sure that you're responding to maximum people there. And then you can also redirect them to the career page, right? So that's what something I do, right? So just copy paste and tell them that, okay, here is the job that you can apply to, right? So
Yeah, I think that's an interesting question. Actually, LinkedIn. Uh, I think while you're responding to candidates on LinkedIn, then try to take them to your ATS or tracker where you can respond to them in a more scalable manner. But despite that, I think a lot of candidates sometimes get restless. They want to update on LinkedIn only. And I had an incident where somebody really was disappointed. And when they actually demand an answer, they think they deserve an answer in 3 days. It's been 3 days, you have not replied to my DM, right? They don't really understand that you're too busy and all of that, which is fine. And especially in a situation like COVID and all of that, right? There are people who are stressed out. So I think although as recruiter or as founders, we might think we are too busy and these are unreasonable people who are actually demanding too much of fast responses from us. But I think in these situations, especially, we have to, do that extra mile thing and, be more considerate and sensitive towards them, because we don't know what they're going through right now. And people are losing jobs and people are, in a very bad state right now. So they might expect very fast response because they are sitting idle and they are applying everywhere and they don't get responses from 50 companies. They feel everybody is bad.
right.
Yep. So I think it's a necessary evil, Thiru. You have to be there and try to automate it through your system tracking or whatever tracking system you're using, and then you have to be there to respond to them and be sensitive towards them. That would be my advice. How you reduce no show for interviews? Oh, no shows for interviews. How do you reduce that? Do you see a lot of no shows for interviews as well?
I wouldn't say a lot, but yeah, there are no shows. How we reduce them, I'm not sure if we have done our best and still there's a no show, we can't really do much about it.
Okay. For sourcing, what portals you use generally more? Kanchan is asking.
Gotcha.
Okay, that's great.
Yep. That aside, I think LinkedIn Recruiter. Then it depends on the kind of profiles, right? So let's say for a technical profile, I would definitely go to CutShort and Naukri at times, not always. If in case you're looking for someone to be an immediate joiner, then apart from that, Belong as well. We have tested out. Works quite well for passive candidates. Then trying out and sourcing, like basically running some X-ray searches and getting profiles from let's say Stack Overflow or general Google profiles on Google as well, GitHub. So there are quite a lot of tools available in the market which helps you find relevant profiles on some of these. Helps you run searches on all of these platforms at once when you perform X-ray. So for passive candidates, of course, these platforms, but then depending on the kind of profiles, right? So let's say if you're hiring for a UX designer, so Instagram is a good platform for that. And then for data scientists, well, right? So it depends on the kind of profile that you are trying to hire for.
Yeah, and just to add to it, I think even sourcing on your application tracking system, right? That also is very effective. Like at least in our case, I think it has worked pretty well for us.
From the candidates who were there in the pipeline before.
Yes.
Yeah, so most of the applicant tracking systems these days have the functionality to be able to source from there. Like you can actually put the Boolean search string and source from there itself. So there is a possibility that we may not have an open position for somebody at that point, but now we have an open position for them. So you can always go back and search on your own ATS and try to get candidates from there.
Okay. How much importance should a company place on reference checks? If the candidate has had a bad experience in the previous company and the company provides negative feedback, how should a company deal with it?
I think that is something which is taken care of by the other team, the onboarding team that's there. But I think, we have also had cases when this thing came up and we do take it very seriously for example, if the documents are not in place, if they don't have employment letter of the previous company, then we do take strict measures on that, because in a way, it just questions on the integrity of the person.
I think this is the whole reference check. You guys do reference checks for all the candidates
Yes.
before offer letter rollout.
Yes. I mean, not
Okay.
before, after the offer letter goes out, and the onboarding team does it before they join.
And if you get bad reference check at that time, then what happens? What do you do with the offer?
Yeah, so I don't think we have had a lot of instances like that, but then if it is something like a minor thing of maybe they don't have the certification right now, they can arrange for it or something like that, right? I don't have a lot of experience with that because it's taken care by another team. But then I think we've had just about few cases like that, and I don't think we would go ahead in that scenario if it is like.
I think you're talking about background checks. The question is about reference checks.
Reference, I don't think we do reference checks. We do background checks actually.
Okay, got it. Okay.
Sorry.
Okay, this was an interesting question from Shiv. How will you control a situation where interviews are getting biased during debrief just due to one round, which did not go well? Does it happen? Like interviews get biased, and how do you know if they're getting biased or their assessment is fair?
We don't share previous round feedback with the interviewers at all. We just tell them what is covered in the previous rounds and what they have to cover. So at times what happens is, some people insist, but still, as a part of, basically, they have to go through a training even before they start conducting interviews. And this bias is a very important topic in that, and we take that very seriously. And after we have started, adopting to it, we have seen amazing results. So yeah, don't share the previous round feedbacks. Instead, just share what is covered and what's to be covered.
So I think there are two kinds of biases. One bias is that one interviewer getting biased because of other interviewers' previous feedback. I think what Shiv is talking about is, let's say only one interviewer interviewed someone and made a very early decision because of their own bias, because of the candidates, whatever answers, that this person is not good enough. So how do you have, like, can you even catch it as a recruiter?
Yeah, so I can possibly add. So actually, every thought worker is supposed to go through this, a training, behavioral training that we have as a part of one of the project initiatives that the recruitment has come up with. So, it covers at a great length of some of the biases that some people can have in their mind. Right. So these biases could be about anything. So let's say, a lot of people say, okay, this is a female person and, she cannot possibly drive. Right. So those are the kind of biases that we actually try and cover. It could be about, let's say, ethnicity, cultural, religious. It could be any kind of biases, and those actually get covered at length in that interview. Basically, those sessions that we do, these behavioral trainings that we do before people can start taking interviews. And that's how we always keep referring back to that as well. So because we ask the panels, okay, what exactly happened in the interview, how did you feel, what happened, and what were the questions, what were the answers, so we somehow are able to dig deeper into, okay, fine, maybe this person was biased, and then we always make them go and refer back to the training, right? So and think about it in that, from that perspective. So yeah.
Okay, one interesting question from Aditi. Do you ask for current CTC, and or do you pay for like skills needed or based on the performance in the interview? Do you decide pay scale based on the assessment and the skills that they have, or do you decide compensation based on the current CTC they have?
Yeah, I think the salary is basically checked. We do check that, and we check that just to see the expectations, right? I mean, if we can offer them what they're expecting, more from that perspective. Obviously, in some cases, what happens is what their expectations ultimately, will go with the interview process, and when it reaches the offer stage. Before that, we have a conversation internally. So we see, depending on their feedback, depending on the years of experience, what is the salary that we should offer them. So that that again happens in a meeting. And there are cases wherein we have given much more than what the candidate was actually expecting. So yeah.
Okay, that's great. So Vandana is asking a similar question. So yeah, do you handle the compensation? Do you match the expectation when they are out of your bracket, or you let them go? So I think you answered this, that you have certain limit, and without beyond which you rather would tell them clearly that you can't offer more than that range, right?
Yeah.
Kanchan is asking, how do you negotiate the offer and make it positive outcome if the offered salary is going to be less than their expectation? I think you hinted upon this previously, that if you don't have a lot of room to play with the salary, then if you have done your research in the previous phases, then you know what candidate liked about your offer or about your company, and then you make a pitch around that, whether it is flexible work, whether it is the kind of learning opportunity, career growth, whatever it is. So Kanchan, I think, hope that kind of answers your question.
There's another question from Sanjana, which I thought would be interesting. She's saying freshers lack clarity about which career path to take and end up taking the job that comes in their way and quit the company within a month. This has been a challenge. So how do we overcome this?
I'm not able to hear you quite well, Supriya.
Just give me a minute.
And one question, Ajay Gupta is
Am
asking.
I audible now?
Yes, yes. You're not able to hear me. So while you're fixing your problem, Supriya, in the meantime, Ajay,
There's some problem with my.
yeah, you can try to fix it. Ajay is asking an interesting thing. He's asking, after even 4 rounds, culture fit doesn't happen. So do you have a separate culture fitment
Hello,
kind of a
Shweta.
round later on? Like, where do you have a culture fitment round as a separate round? Or is it like you guys do it in the initial phases? Where do how do you do that?
It is a separate round and we do it towards the end actually. So there is after all the technical rounds, or basically the let's say whatever skill set that we are hiring for, all those skill set based rounds are done, then we have like one round which is, we call it as leadership interview, that basically is a management interview as it is called in the industry. And apart from that, we also do another round which is around social change topics. So we have it as one of the vision of or basically one of the lenses as to why ThoughtWorks exists. And that's one of the integral part of our culture. So we also make sure that people we are hiring are like-minded through that interview, which also helps us understand whether this person is a culturally fit or not.
So out of 100 people who go to that phase, how many of them get rejected after that?
I would say the rejection percentage there would be 3-4%, not more than that.
Okay.
That's the general trend, I guess, for management interviews and cultural fitment round.
And this is taken by whom? Like senior leadership, meaning what kind of?
Yeah, so the leadership round is taken by leadership team, but the other round, cultural fitment, basically the social change is what we call it, and that round is taken by trained people. So it could be anybody at ThoughtWorks who's trained on those aspects.
Okay. Jennifer is asking a longer question, so I'll take a bit of time to read that. What is a tip for startups? Because if the candidates have preferences to join known companies, then as a startup, how can you make candidates excited for it?
Sally, you want to take that? I think you have some experience of working in a startup organization earlier.
Yeah, I think the advantage of working in a startup is you get to learn a lot, right? You get to do so many things. So maybe you can pitch the role more and the scope of work more, right, over there. What are those things that they'll get to do when they come in? That could be one aspect of looking at it. Apart from that, I think in startups, there the culture also is one more aspect that you can sell to the candidates when you talk to them. So yeah, and as a recruiter also, you get to try on so many different things.
Yeah, I think this is an interesting question that maybe other people in the room also can, someone can raise a hand and we can invite them. But I think startup hiring is definitely a very challenging but very interesting area. So I think although it looks like you are at disadvantage, but I think that disadvantage also gives you advantage. Brand names have the advantage, but they also have the limitations that they can't do a lot of things that startups can do. So I think in terms of customizing your offer, in terms of offering a great candidate a great career journey and transformation, I think that is something that you can very easily do at a startup as compared to bigger companies who don't have a room to do that. So I think you can customize a lot of things at a startup. And that being said, I think from my side, I think it's more like you have to think from the candidate perspective. If they have to join your startup, then of course you have to think from their perspective and what will make them join it. Your startup has to be credible. If your startup has no other like literature around it, there's no page, the team is not looking very inspirational, the work looks to be boring, then of course people will not join. So there will be table stake work that we have to do as a founder or also as a startup recruiter to create a minimum presence for the company, which makes it attractive and makes it look trustworthy and credible to the candidates. Then only they will join. Because if you are in their shoes, then you will not join just one more company, because in today's world, basically there are a lot of options, right? So they will join the company that they're more sure about, where they get more confidence that they will be taken care of. They don't want to be out looking for a job again in 3 months. So I think from that perspective, if you think around, I think you have to do that kind of work. And I think it's an opportunity. Startups can attract a lot of talent which big companies cannot. I think this will be an interesting topic in itself. Other startup recruiters can also raise their hand if they want. We can take their input as well. So it's
Namrata has raised her hand.
Namrata. Yeah, so we'll come to that section. Let's do one round of this thing so that we are clear on all the questions. Ira is asking a good question. How do you help the recruiters in your team? How do you make them go in a partner role and not just recruiter role? So you mentioned earlier that at ThoughtWorks, you're not just doing the operational recruitment work, you are more like a partner. So how do you inculcate this kind of a practice inside your company? What all things you have to do?
Yeah, so when someone joins us, right, we make sure that they are equipped with all the right kind of material. So we actually, again, as a part of global recruitment initiatives, there was one project that we came up with. There's a recruitment playbook that we have created, which provides them with all the things that they should know about, and they should be able to kickstart their journey at ThoughtWorks. So it is a playbook that has to be finished by them in 3 months. So it lays down the entire foundation for them for the first 3 months, what all things they should learn about. Side by side, they're also assigned one buddy, and also they have their leads to go up to. So this constant mentoring and coaching is happening. Like let's say, for example, if Saili has been here for some time and somebody else joins new, right? So Saili would be mentoring that person and making sure that wherever she's going, she would be taking that person along and making sure that they are able to learn while they are going through the resources, as well as practically, while everything is happening.
Okay, one question is, which ATS you guys are using?
Greenhouse.
Okay. One question is, how do you know if candidates actually have an offer? What if they are just faking it?
I think we make it very clear that they'll have to provide it later on when they reach the offer stage. If they don't want to disclose the name of the company, then some way hide it and just show it to us. But they have to show it to us.
Do you guys hire freshers?
Yeah, we do. So basically, we have a campus recruitment team who takes care of the grad hiring. Basically, that's what we call it.
So it's through the campus, you visit campuses and you hire from there. You don't do off campuses drives and stuff.
No, there are various other majors also. Like we do some coding challenges through Hacker Earth at times, and there are different such things which keep happening in the background.
Yeah, so it's both on campus and off campus.
Okay, but you don't deal with that kind of fresher hiring?
Not
personally.
right, since we've got the campus recruitment team. Yeah.
Okay. Do you believe in preparing the candidates for interviews? Rosalie is asking. So yeah, I think they covered that. They do help them understand what is going to be asked in the next interview and help them with the preparation, so that they also the candidates are more prepared, and they also build more rapport with the candidates. In resume, which thing attracts you the most? Anis is asking. Like simple and minimize details or colorful, well designed, or resume with details of projects. What do you feel attracted towards?
It's an interesting question. I would rather prefer to look at the whole resume rather than just specific things, because everyone has a different way of putting their resume. So there's not just one thing. There are all those things together is what is important when you review the resumes.
But I
But
think that might be true for designer roles, right? So where you would probably look at the layout and how they have actually used the fancy fonts and everything, but not for the techie or non-technical roles, basically.
are you getting the interviews done from any third party or vendor platform, or are you completely managing internally?
No. We are managing all the interviews internally, but there are some contractor hirings that we do to manage some short-term projects.
What is your take on how much benefits and perks influence offer conversion? What do you think? How many candidates do you think are influenced by companies' benefits and perks? I think versus the salary number. Do candidates find it valuable?
I think if you just talk about the perks, then maybe not. But if you talk, give them like a wholesome view of what they are currently getting, and versus what we are providing them. So then I think then it in some cases it makes a difference, because benefits are ultimately something you get, right. So you can't completely avoid that fact.
Okay, I think we still have a lot of questions, but time is running out. So why don't we just let some other people come in? You can, I think we can wrap it up by 7:30 in that case. There are more questions, so I think you can ask those questions on LinkedIn post we have. I think link somebody from my team can give again, so that Saili and Sana and their team can go to that LinkedIn post afterwards and then maybe answer those questions there, if that works better, because the Zoom chat, if it is over, then this chat will be gone. So if you can ask your questions there. So anybody who wants to have any wants to share anything on any of the topics that we just talked about today, especially I think the most sought after thing was around joining ratios and all of that. So has someone like tried something simple, like 3-month notice period people, right? So how do you engage, and any tricks that you used that have worked for you? Anybody wants to share some tips, and you can raise your hand. Do we have any hands?
I think we all can learn from each other. So maybe if someone has anything to add. I think there is one hand.
Kanchan has posted in the chat. We keep them warm during the time and keep constant touch with them. And I think Viral is raising his hand.
Yes, I have one thing to share. I'm not sure whether it is beneficial or not, but let's say.
By
in
the way,
order
just a
to-
bit, can other people also start their video camera if possible? So at least we can see each other. Otherwise, we'll all be seeing the initials like T, S, and all of that. Yep. Great to see people. Hi, Shiv. Nice to see you. This is a virtual background. Yeah, Viral, you can go ahead in the meantime.
Yes, a quick update is about, let's say, candidate engagement. For example, let's say if the recruit for the technical positions, if the recruiter is also present along with the interview panel during the interview, maybe it can help in maybe increasing the engagement or knowing more about the candidate. That one of the practice maybe we can try.
So to solve which problem?
To understand what you can say, the real expectations or means how much does the candidate is serious, maybe from the other angles, let's say from the competitor's perspective or any other reason which we might think about whether this candidate might not be, what you can say, available later on.
Okay, that's an interesting thought. I've never heard any company doing that, recruiter sitting in technical interviews. I've seen, in fact, some complaints from candidates saying that recruiters asking me technical questions, but they don't know technology, but they're asking me all the Java questions and they feel like not so good about it.
Yes, yes. So recruiter will remain probably silent, only the conversation happening between the technical teams.
Yeah, but I think, I don't know, Saili and Sana would like to do that. Would you like to do that, Sana and Saili, given a chance?
Not sure, Nikunj. But yeah,
Not
I mean,
very oftenly, Nikunj.
Yeah.
Reason because candidate might not feel comfortable. Two people are interviewing at a time. Maybe like one or two calls, I can definitely shadow with the technical interviewers so that next time whenever I'm screening a candidate, so I can screen on the same lines or at least on a beginning lines, but completely each and every interview shadowing. Not really sure if interviewers also will feel comfortable about it, not just the candidate.
So yeah, I think, yeah, that sounds reasonable. I think Ira was asking about GitHub, searching on GitHub. So I think if you have any questions around searching people on the internet, Shiv is your guy. He can tell you about all the different kind of searches that you can run. Shiv is there also. You are there in the WhatsApp group as well?
I'm there. I added my there.
Yeah, so feel free to ask questions there. I think Shiv will be happy to give you more search queries and all of that. He actually runs sessions for free. You can join his sessions and he can convert, make you a great search recruiter on the internet. So any other questions, any other thoughts you guys have that you would like to discuss like in 5 minutes?
I would definitely focus one thing on a candidate preparation, because I tell my each and every candidate, though they are from the great pedigree and the great companies.
Can you, by the way, introduce yourself, Shiv? I think other people don't know you much.
So yeah, myself, Shiv Kumar. So I've been in a recruiting industry from about close to 10 years. Earlier, I started with sales, and then in the year 2010, there are some interesting transitioning happened where I referred a lot of employees, and that's how I got into the recruitment. And yeah, I worked with a various set of companies, service companies, product companies. My previous company was Amazon. Tech companies, had my own consulting firm when I jumped into recruitment. So I started recruitment with my own consulting firm. So got a mix of various experience since 2013. I never worked on a job portal. That is the specialty about me. It's all about the passive, completely passive, GitHub, Stack, online web profiles, LinkedIn. Recruiter also, I do use it, but not to source, but to come up with the various analytical reports. Company loss and gain reports and everything. So for a lot of research activity, I use LinkedIn Recruiter, last option for sourcing. But for sourcing, I have some other options. Internal ATS is something, one of a great option I feel about it. So that's pretty much about me. And yeah, coming back to the topic, as I was telling, one of the what I say, each and every of my candidate, though they are coming from the great pedigree, great colleges, great companies, I still tell them like, see, there are a set of people who still get rejected. The reason because you're not good, not because you're not good at what day-to-day life you're doing it, but because it's a lack of preparation and the lack of understanding of approaching an interview question. Something like given a problem statement, we see a lot of candidates getting rejected because they're directly jumping into the solution, right, or writing the code. Then again, interviewer has to nudge them and give them the hints. That's where the process of writing a messy code takes places. Rather, I suggest my candidate, once you get the problem statement, ask enough clarifying questions, get the problem statement clear, take the interviewer sign off. Is that what they're expecting? So, and once the problem statement is clear, then you think about the optimization part of it as far as possible. And that's where you start writing your code or proposing a solution. And that's how the process of writing a clean code takes places. And with these kind of a practice and with a lot of preparations on required competencies, as Sana was mentioning, like we also help candidate on every round of an interview, every step of the discussion. We are also telling the candidates what is the next step, what are the competencies in the next interview it's going to be covered, and how much time. Let's say if I'm getting my candidate, at least I give them a 2 to 3 weeks of time for the preparation, and that's where I just go and get them the on-site. And on every step, I'll be keep on coaching them. So immediately I just call them, tell them that what's the previous feedback of the interview. And if there are any concern with that particular competency, will that be covered again, so that candidate will get a chance again to prove it. So thoroughly, when we continuously engage with the candidate on every dot, then definitely you can see that dropouts are also less and the conversion is also better. So that relation is always built over there. So it's like continuous integration and continuous development with the candidate, I can say.
That's a great analogy. Yeah, Kalyan, you want to say something? You're raising your hand.
Okay, yeah. Hi guys, my name is Kalyan. I've been there in the industry for past 14 years. I've been into different parts of HR, right from onboarding till the exit of the employee, right? I've been there with 24/7. I've been there with Big Basket. Now I'm working with a startup company called PERT. So as there was a discussion about a person who's interviewing, right? There was a discussion around somebody else also monitoring the interview, right? I saw this process way back in 2004, where I attended my first interview with HSBC, right? There was one person who was constantly sitting in the interview room at one corner, not even a single point of they were not even talking anything, and they were just observing the person, observing the interview, who was giving the interview, right? So there we can actually filter out a lot of other things what we have discussed in the session today. That gives a lot of insights for the hiring managers. Probably we can make our interns or new recruiters who we want to excel in the recruitment team. If we can implement that in our organizations, yes, we can get a lot of insights, because we have done it. I have done it in my companies wherever I've joined, because I felt when somebody is observing us and when somebody is trying to somebody is observing, we will have that consciousness in ourselves and try not to tell all different things where we tend to hear in the interview these days. That's what the input I had to give.
Okay, that sounds interesting. So it would be great if there is a blog post or something which details out this process. I think just to
yes,
get more idea. That would be great
process.
if you can share that blog post and then we can
Sure.
circulate and.
Yeah, definitely. I can do that.
Okay. So I think it's 7:30 is time to wrap up, unfortunately, although I think the momentum was just building up. But in interest of, the schedule for other people here, I think let's wrap it up. We'll have more sessions like this. You can also suggest, what we should cover in the next topics. If you have any suggestions on somebody who wants to prepare and present some insights, feel free to do that. It's a community thing that we are doing. A lot of questions also are around sourcing. So I think for passive thing, you can ask your questions in the TA refresh group. I think some of the people can answer those questions. A lot of people are asking also about LinkedIn, Naukri and all of that, where to hire good tech talent and all of that. I think we have 2 or 3 initiatives running right now on CutShort. One is Book My Show has laid off some people. So we are getting their resumes. So if you're interested in hiring them, then you can reply to us. We will share one place where you can access all the resumes. We also have one more initiative for HRTA community. All the jobs on the CutShort platform are free. There is no unlock and all of that. You can completely on a free plan and hire. So if you're hiring for your people in the HRTA thing, again, CutShort is a place where you can go. And there, like for any tech hiring, I think a lot of people are using here LinkedIn and Naukri and stuff, but they may not have used CutShort. So try CutShort as well. I think ThoughtWorks is already using it. A lot of other people also using and hiring. So you can reply to us to any of the emails, and we will set up your trial. You can use it for free. Sanjana, if you also want to know about more of the sourcing methods and all of that. The WhatsApp group link is there in the chat section. We will again send it to you in the email confirmation which will be sent soon. Again, it will have the link where you can join. I hope this was useful. Thanks for taking time out for this. And I hope you'll also be there in the next session, and we'll do it even better next time. Thanks, Sana, and thanks, Saili, for taking out time for this, for sharing their insights candidly with everyone. And I hope it was useful to hear from them, and we'll have more people who will share their learnings in the days to come.
Thank you for having us. And in fact, I think you were a great audience as well. Let's continue to do this and learn from each other.
Yeah. Thank you, everyone.
Thanks, everyone. Good night.
Thank you.
Stay safe. Stay healthy.
Thank you, everyone.